Hey guys, welcome to this video. So this is just a quick one regarding treble in orchestral music. So I just want to say that the amount of treble and basically the frequency response of the track is going to depend a lot on the writing of the track. So let's say you have a buzzy brass treble track, like hybrid track with lots of hits and brass and everything. Obviously you're going to have a lot more treble and a much more, let's say, treble heavy frequency response. But if you have a film score type track, you can have a lot less treble, and that's normal, and you actually don't need more, because if you had more, you would kind of lose depth, and I will demonstrate that in a second. But basically, the frequency response when it comes to the treble is going to depend quite a bit on the writing and the type of track that you're working with. And it might be tempting to boost the treble to just kind of EQ match, let's say, a treble track, but it doesn't work that way. Like, the sweet spot is going to be entirely dependent on the composition, so you really need to be flexible, and you don't need to be scared of making a track darker if that's what fits the composition. Like, mixing is actually about balance. It's really about balance. Like, what makes a good mix is having the right EQ for the right composition. That's like 80% of it. So let's say you have this track here. And then this. They sound different, but both good, right? So let's compare the frequency response and let's see how different it is. All right, it kind of looks like that. And now, oops. Now let's see this one. So obviously very different, but they both sound nice in their own way. So what would happen if we try to kind of match the frequency response of this track? Well, we are not even there yet, and it already sounds too airy. Okay, obviously that's a catastrophe. So you do realize now that we can actually hear the air and like all the treble and all the subtleties of the strings just fine without this crazy high EQ. And for this track, this film score type track, that's what it needs. It needs to be warmer, but we still hear the detail because there is less stuff masking the strings. Like, the brass is warm, so the air of the strings just come through, even though overall there is less treble going on. But because of the composition, we can still hear all the detail, and boosting a lot of treble will actually kind of lose the depth and make the strings way too close and just destroy the track. So because of this composition, we need to have this kind of frequency response to get a nice open sound. But now when it comes to this, if we had the same kind of frequency response on this, in that case, having like the treble cut this way doesn't give us more depth. It just sounds less exciting. So because of this composition, we actually want more treble, and naturally we're going to have more treble. So it is just to prove the point that the frequency response of your treble, like of your track, but the treble in particular, is really going to depend on the composition. If you have more elements kind of masking the treble and getting in the way and just piling up, you're generally going to end up with a brighter track just because of the nature of it. And that's what you want. Of course, you can't make it too bright or you start losing depth and all the instruments start getting closer, and that's bad. Even on this trailer track, we can't get too bright or we just lose depth. It's like a balance between excitement and like, shininess of the treble and depth. If we just have too much treble, everything comes closer and it's not good. But here is the same. It's like a balance between, between airiness and like the nice air of the strings and depth as well. But as you heard before, if we boost the treble, it just becomes unnaturally airy and we just lose the depth completely and it sounds artificial and synthy, which is not what we want from these strings. So that will come with time and with just ear training. But what will make you come back to a mix and be like, oh, that's perfectly balanced, is going to be mostly just having the right EQ for the right track. So don't just go with one preset or whatever, even for the same library, but do consider the writing of the track and the whole composition overall and kind of make your EQ choices depending on what the track is, basically. And you have to be fine with different frequency responses in the treble, depending on the track. All right, I hope it was helpful, guys. And yeah, I will see you later. Cheers.